Hi, my name is Crystalline, and I'm going to talk to you about shadow work. Now, I'm teaching a class called Heal the Healer, and in that class, it's directed for healers, spiritual life coaches. I'm a spiritual life coach, by the way, and normally I'm living in Italy right now. I'm in Northern California because of the travel bans. There are no flights that are leaving from California, so I've got to stay here. And it's bringing up a lot of shadow. It has brought up a lot of shadow. And earlier today I was at the dog park, and and I've been at this dog park now for about 2 months, and so I've met a lot of people, and the people are really sweet. They're really friendly, and we chit chat, and I've been sharing my adventures, and they're kind of like, when are you going home? Are you excited? And I'm like, well, we just canceled my flight, so I'm not going home. And I was, expressing my disappointment, and one of the women in the park said, Crystal, how can you stay so positive when there's so much disappointment? Because I've invested a lot of money in this apartment. I've invested a lot of hope in my return home. I have a community there in Italy that I've built up, friendships, relationships. There's a lot that's at stake there. And then not to mention that I have an apartment full of furniture, the rents that have been paid, all these kinds of things. So the question is, how can I stay so positive through all of that? And there are a couple of reasons why I'm able to stay positive. Number one, I'm detached from the material experience of life. I'm in the world, but I'm not of the world. I know you've heard that before, but what does that mean exactly? Well, for me, it basically means that I have an attitude which says I am a divine being having a human experience. So the things that I experience in this lifetime are part of the humanity, and so I celebrate it. Like, okay, no, I'm not in Italy, but I'm in a really beautiful environment. I'm extremely safe. I'm extremely comfortable. I'm extremely blessed, and it would be really foolish of me to shit on the environment where I am because it's glorious. So I refuse to shit on my environment, So that's number one, attitude, okay? But the way I maintain this attitude and the way that I'm able to get to this attitude is by a process that I call shadow work. Now, shadow work is a term that was coined by Carl Jung, and he and Sigmund Freud were psychoanalysts, and they had these really powerful theories about how the human consciousness is established. And look, I wrote an article about this. I will put a link for it in the description for this video, so you can go and read that. But anyway, Carl Jung was like, look, there's a part of us that we want to acknowledge and a part of us that we don't want to acknowledge. And the part of us that we want to acknowledge is kind of like the part of us that's in the light, right? And the part of us we don't want to acknowledge is in the shadows. And he's basically saying, like, that part that's in the shadows is problematic because it's hidden even from ourselves. So it would be one thing if I said, well, I am afraid of failing. If I just said, hey, I'm afraid of failing, that would be one thing, right? I'm saying it outright, and I could deal with what I know. I can easily deal with what I know. If I say I'm afraid of failing, I can go get a coach and work with a coach, and they can help me with my fears around failure. The problem is that when you have a fear of failure and it's hidden, meaning you don't know you have it, but it is functioning. Our subconscious issues, which is the shadow part of ourselves, is where things are really dangerous, because what is hidden in our subconscious mind still has influence over us, and it's painting the world around us, right? So it's influencing our perspective, it's influencing our judgments, it's coloring our opinions, it's making us biased in ways that we don't even realize. And this is why it's really dangerous, because when you don't know that something's happening, you don't know why you're having the experience that you're having. So shadow work is a process where we go into the subconscious mind and we look for limiting beliefs, negative thought patterns, opinions, attitudes, ideas that are errant, that are wrong, that are not in alignment with what we desire for ourselves. So, for example, most of my life I've dealt with subconscious issues of unworthiness. And so what would happen is I would go out to live my life, to be in relationships, intimate, romantic relationships. And I would choose partners that would abuse me, lie to me, cheat on me, create illusions. Most of it was lying, a lot of lying in my relationships. And so those things, it's like, well, why does that happen to me? I'm a good person, I don't lie. But inside of me were feelings of I'm not lovable, feelings of I don't deserve romance, I don't deserve beliefs. Here's an old belief: relationships are hard, men cheat, people lie. These were all beliefs that I never talked about outright. I never, if somebody said to me, what are the issues that you have with men, I would never have said to you, oh, men lie, or anything like that. And it's not until I started doing these beliefs and looking at the core of what was going on and the cause of the problems, the root causes of the problems, all of my stuff was anchored in I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough to be loved, no man will value me. Those are beliefs that I had, and they came out in many different ways. So shadow work is a process where you let me say that shadow work comes in many different forms. I personally have a few different ways that I like to work with the shadow, but there are a number of ways that you can work with the shadow, and it's not anything complicated. It can be complicated, but you don't have to do anything complicated. You can do some really simple processes. For example, just getting in your journal and writing, just writing in, just voicing your thoughts and writing down how you feel and the things you've experienced. That's a great way to start getting into your shadow. Another thing that you can do is to ask a question to your God, like, your God, goddess. Ask and then write down the answer that they give. Like, hey, why am I having trouble making my business successful? God always answers. You just have to listen and then write. Okay, that's one way of dealing with your shadow. Another great way of dealing with your shadow is to take your pen and put it in your non-dominant hand. So I'm right-handed when I write, but if I write with my left hand, then I access another aspect of my brain, and my brain starts functioning differently. So one of the things you can do, a very basic shadow work technique, is to ask yourself a question and then write out the answer with your left hand or with your non-dominant hand. Now, what I have found when I do that is it's very hard to read what I have written. So don't try to write in a way that's legible and understandable. Instead, go ahead and write with your left hand, but turn on your voice recorder and vocalize what your left hand is meant to be writing. it becomes a really beautiful process where you are writing, you're engaging with your left hand, you're accessing the right side of your brain, which is the feminine side of your brain, which is your subconscious, shadowy, like irrational, wild self. It's beautiful. And there are different voices in there. You get to access those voices when you do this kind of work. So definitely doing this is a super powerful process that will give you access to parts of yourself that you didn't realize. So you use the voice recorder because you won't be able to go back and read what you've written, but you can you'll be able to record it, so you'll hear what it is that you're writing out. Okay, and it's quite beautiful, and it's a little eerie when you listen to the recording because you usually go into some kind of a trance, and it is pretty cool actually. You know, you realize how intensely connected you are to, you know, a wild instinctual side that exists inside of you. So I totally recommend doing something like that. Now, there are also exercises that you can do where you are finding limiting beliefs that are existing. I have a wonderful process that I've adapted from Teal Swan's Finding and Changing a Limiting Belief videos. She did a couple of those videos, and those videos helped me so much, and I built out the processes around them because she gives you a basic process, but I went into detail on them and added some more things that worked for me. And so in my Heal the Healer class, I will be teaching you that process. By the way, that's a free class. You should totally come and sign up for it. It's going to be awesome. I think it's running for 3 weeks. It might be 3 or 4 weeks. I can't remember. Sorry. It's 3 weeks. Okay. So it's 3 weeks, and there's a weekly live stream. There's written stuff, exercises for you to do. And there's also the community, so you can join the community and come and connect with us. It's really a great process. You're going to love it. So when you're looking at something like a limiting belief, the thing you want to do is to find the core belief, because a core belief is like a set of weeds, right? So weeds are really complex because they have really complex structures that go in and take over everything. Well, a limiting belief is the exact same way. One limiting belief can branch off and do 10 different things. So for example, if the core belief is I am unworthy, a branch off of that is I am rejectable. People will reject me. I am unlovable. I don't deserve. All these things stem from a feeling of unworthiness, right? So what we will have you do is find the core belief. Like when you have an issue, like let's say that you are trying to get promoted in your work, but you're having trouble. You keep getting passed over for promotion. You know, a 3-dimensional approach might be to say, well, you know, they're passing me over because I'm too old, or they keep only hiring men. Well, what we want to do as spiritual beings is understand that our life changes from the inside out. So we have to look at you and say, well, what's going on inside of you that this kind of discrimination is being outpictured, right? So what we want to do is look at what you're creating inside yourself, and we do that by looking at the core belief. We go in, we find the core belief, and then we have you do some work around it. So you have to take responsibility for the beliefs that are inside your head. You can't just like have a belief and be like, okay, I'm going to get rid of that. My belief was I'm not worthy, so now my belief is I am worthy. It doesn't work that way. In any shape or form, it does not work that way, period. You cannot do that, okay? I've tried it. It don't work. So what you've got to do, well, it's a process that I'll teach you about in this class, but what you've got to do is take responsibility for the belief, and you also have to understand how that belief has served you, because that belief has served you. It's kept you safe, it's kept you protected, it's kept you limited, yes, but you were comfortable in that limitation, which is why you lived with it for so long and why it was able to establish itself like a weed and infect your whole life. You allowed that. So you have to take responsibility. You also have to develop a relationship with this belief before you let it go. Because Lord knows you can't break up with something that like you don't even know you're in a relationship with. How are you going to just walk away from it when it's something that's actually clinging to you? So it's kind of like you've had this attachment that you didn't know you had, but like you can't just get rid of it like that. It's not like a piece of trash that you can throw off, because part of your soul's agenda is for you to develop an awakening and an evolution around that belief. Okay, so I hope I'm explaining this clearly. If not, you can ask me questions in the comments section. And yes, I'm standing outside. It's 103 degrees today here in Fair Oaks, although I think on this side of the house it's probably more like 90 degrees over here. Maybe it's a little bit cooler because it's so shaded. Can you believe these trees? Look at these trees. Look at that sunlight shining through there. Is this magnificent or what? And that little hummingbird feeder, since I've been making this video, there have been 2 or 3 hummingbirds that have come over there and just been enjoying the nectar from that feeder. And it is just a really beautiful, beautiful location, which is why I can't complain, which is why I have to stay positive, because God protects. Your divinity is protected. So I totally forgot where I left off. I'm now all distracted, but don't worry, I'm gonna get back on track, because I know I was talking about limiting beliefs. Oh, and the process for changing them. So there's a process. Then once you've gone through the process to kind of connect with the belief, to acknowledge the belief, and to appreciate the belief, once you do that, then you can start negotiating how you're going to change the belief. And again, you're not going to go, rarely will you ever go from I'm not worthy to I am worthy in, one exercise. You would want to kind of step your belief up a little bit, like you'd step it up. So if your belief is I'm not worthy, a better belief might be there are times when I've not felt worthy in my life, but I am understanding that my understanding of my worth is developing. That's a great belief, right? I can believe both parts of those. Yes, I can totally believe that there was a time when I was not feeling worthy, and I can also believe that my relationship with worthiness is improving. That works for me. So that creates in yourself and in the universe, in the energy, a more harmonious kind of relationship. And as you evolve, as you grow, you can step that up. It can then, the next one is, I've been practicing worthiness and I'm starting to understand what worth is. I realize I didn't know what worth was before. Now I do. I am feeling worthy, right? So then you can then step that up, and it can become, I recognize my worth. I am really inviting more understanding of my worth into my life. And from there, you can then say something like, I'm owning my worthiness. I own my worth. I am worthy. So you see, that was a gradual stepping up, and that is not something that you would normally do in just one day. That's something that you would do maybe over the course of 3 months, 6 months, a year, maybe longer, depending on what your issues are. We are all different. The key, though, is to do shadow work on a regular basis and create for yourself an inner environment where you are constantly engaging with your shadow, looking at yourself, listening to the dark parts of yourself without denying them. Okay? Now, what other shadow work stuff would you do? There's so many things. And actually, maybe I should go ahead and sign off, because I'm already on this call for 19 minutes. So maybe that's enough for me to talk about right now as far as shadow is concerned. Again, I want to invite you to read my article about like how I stay positive with this, you know, in in times of challenge, right? Because if you're a spiritual life coach, your job is to figure out how to like keep a positive attitude, how to stay focused on your divinity, even in the face of trying times. Most people think, oh, well, as a life coach, you can't have downtime. You can't feel sad. You can't feel bad. You always have to be perfect. Thank God that is so not true. The way you feel great is to practice unconditional love with yourself. The more you practice loving your shadow and accepting your shadow and embracing yourself, being compassionate with yourself, the more powerfully you are able to transform the dark parts naturally. So, and I'm just going to end this by saying, because this is coming up in my mind, please don't just think positive thoughts. Don't do that to yourself. That is unnatural. It is unnatural to be experiencing sadness, grief, loss, pain, invalidation, you know, whatever it is you're feeling. It's not natural to feel those things and then to deny those things, shut them down like they don't have the right to exist, and then to try to create something absolutely different or radically different than the way you authentically are feeling in the moment. Don't get me wrong, sometimes there are times when you need to get your mood right. Like, you know, if the kids are coming in and you're having a breakdown and your kids don't need to see you breaking down, then by golly, put on some lipstick, put on a fake smile, and go out there and talk Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. You know, do what you have to do. But don't do that to yourself on a regular basis. Don't make that your go-to way of treating yourself. All right? What I want you to do is to always carve out some time to spend with yourself. 10 minutes a day, powerful. Journaling, writing, doing shadow work, all those things. But don't just force yourself to change just because you don't feel like you have the right to have negative feelings or negative emotions. You have the right to have negative emotions. You have the right to be sad. You have the right to feel what you feel. But don't abuse yourself because you don't deserve that. All right? All right. Crystalline Bell here signing off, wishing you a hot and happy, sexy, awesome summer. All right? Bye for now.